The #1 rock countdown in North America. The L.A. Lloyd Rock 30.
Hey, it is L.A. Lloyd, and today marks the third appearance of Daughtry as co-host of the Rock 30. Last time we had him on the show was September 8th last year on another Zoom interview. So, hey, man, looks like you're sitting there in your element today, and great to see you again.
Yeah, I have no idea what any of these buttons do. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, last time we spoke, we were doing the Live at Home virtual tour, and we actually had one that was here, for Austin with Emos, our club here. So I thought after watching it, the performance and the talk time you spent with the fans was really cool. So just curious, now that you've done that series, were they fun to do and something maybe you consider down the road, even maybe after the venue's open?
Yeah, you know what? It was a lot of fun. It was a huge learning experience for me because I realized, well, first of all, it's extremely different when you're playing in front of a camera and you don't hear any applause. You don't hear any of the energy from the crowd. And I didn't realize just how much I depended on them for me to have a great show, and how backwards that is.
Yeah.
And I realized after the first few shows, I was talking to my guitar player, Brian, I was like, dude, I feel like we got it all wrong. I feel like, all along we've been depending on them to hype us up and then we'll give them a great show, when it should be like, we should just be hyped up and give them a great show, and then they're going to have fun regardless. And It really was a learning experience, because when you don't have that gratification or that yay, and it's crickets in between songs, you realize that you just have to have fun doing what you're doing because that's what you love doing. And it was a nice eye opener for me. And once I kind of figured that out in my own, noggin and got that through my head, I was like, oh yeah, this is we're the ones that are supposed to be giving them the show, and then they're going to have fun, not the other way around. Well, and it was a lot of fun. We had a blast, and we just started feeding off of each other. And it's not something that I prefer over, live performances. Obviously, it'll never take the place of that. But would I consider doing in the future if need be? I mean, yeah. I mean, the bottom line is we love to play, and we love to give the fans something to enjoy. We would much rather be there in person.
Well, I totally hear that. For me, it seems like your career has kind of done this full cycle. And what I mean by that is kind of leading you back to a rock sound. That's where I think your roots have always been, even when you were, playing in North Carolina before everything really blew up. So, now that your agreement with RCA is fulfilled, you can focus on the next chapter of your life. I mean, how do you feel like this is going to take you musically moving forward?
When we parted ways, and it was very mutual. I finished my contract, and they didn't want to move forward, and neither did I. I took a step back, and I was like, what? I started listening to the music that got me excited to play music in the first place. And what do I love? What kind of record do I want to make without any input from this person or this peer or this family member or anybody on the team that was telling me, well, by the way, this band is doing this and that's how they're staying relevant. This band is doing, I had to step away from all that outside noise and was like, what do I love? What do I want to do? Let's stop the chasing. Stop chasing your tail. Stop trying to fit a format, and stop trying to, recreate a success that was based on a time where radio was very different,
Right.
And I started listening to those records that got me excited about music when I was a kid, like the Super Unknowns, the Bad Motor Fingers, Dirt, Facelift, Throwing Copper, Secret Samadhi, those records that made me fall in love with wanting to be on stage and wanting to write songs. And that's how I went into making this record, and working with people that believed in me and understood me as an artist, as a person, as a rock artist. And Marty Fredrickson, Scott Stevens, that I've worked with for many years now on many records, but not on a production level, just as songwriters. And I felt like they understood me and where I wanted to go with this record. And man, have we accomplished that? And this record, top to bottom, is by far the most proud I've been of a body of work. And I could not be happier, and can't wait for the fans to hear this record. I think this is the record that fans have been wanting to hear from us for a very, very long time.
Right.
And they're all going to be like, finally!
Well, one thing's for sure, if Marty can get Steven Tyler to do a country record, I don't think he'll have no problem whatsoever working with you on a rock one, right? So, no one obviously could have expected the impact of what the pandemic has put us through, but, to keep the show positive today, I mean, has there been a silver lining that you've kind of pulled out of all of this heading into the future?
Major. It's not lost on me that everyone's gone through hard times and had to get used to a new normal. But, fairly early into the pandemic, I had to start. I looked at it as a huge opportunity to really focus on where I wanted to see this project go, what kind of videos I wanted to produce, what kind of overall direction for this record, and not just the music, but everything that's surrounding it, the merch, the videos, the artwork. I was really able to focus on it at a level that I've never really been able to focus on before, because of the back and forth with touring. And not only that, but my own, psyche of what's everybody else doing? Like, I was able to really just get inside my own body and my own head and really see forward, in advance, where I like everything that I want to do with this record. And a lot of this stuff will be revealed later, but it's been a huge silver lining, and the relationships that I've been able to cultivate with my kids and my wife, because I haven't been home in 15 years this long, and learning the ins and outs of domestic life,
She may be ready for you to get back on the road.
Oh, I'm so ready.
No, I said she might be.
She is typically, within 2 weeks of me being home, she was counting down the hours before I would leave again. But now I think I've gained a whole new respect and perspective of what she deals with on a daily basis. And I think I'm terrified to leave her with all of that responsibility now.
Right.
But yeah, it's been great. In that regards, I had a bit of an identity crisis in the beginning, for sure. But I think my life is in more balance than it's been in a very long time.
That's great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit away from music, because last time we spoke, I learned what a huge Batman fan you were. And, since that time, I read about this cameo, and I actually did watch it, the fan-made film Batman Dying is Easy. I love the part that you did, man. You did very well.
Yeah,
so tell me about getting involved with that and you actually shooting your part.
Yeah, so I've known Aaron, the director, for a few years through a friend of mine who's a prop maker and did the costumes for the movie. Longtime friend Sean Reeves, who, if anyone's ever curious of where I got all my Batman cows that are in my office, they came from him.
Oh, okay.
Reeves Effects. So he called me up and was like, "Hey man, I'm shooting this short film. Would love to have you involved." This was early on in the pandemic, and I was like, "Man, I'm not trying." I was saying no to everything.
Right.
Like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what to say yes to. And he was like, "No, man, you could just do it on your phone or in your at home in front of a green screen." And I was like, let me think about it. It's actually the reason I grew my beard out in the first place. And
Really?
I grew it out for the character. And then I was like, I think this is sticking. I think I'm keeping it.
Nice.
But I just shot it on my phone. in front of a green screen in my office. It took me all of an hour. Me and my manager was, in there filming a bunch of takes, and it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I said yes to it. Now I'm in a movie with Michael Madsen.
There you go. There you go. It's funny how things work out.
Maybe Quentin Tarantino will call me up someday. Who knows?
He might, man. You might be onto something. Well,
he did. Quentin Tarantino did. I will give you a little fun fact.
Okay.
I met Tarantino in his office years ago, and he was like, "Oh my God, Chris Daughtry! I knew that was you." And I was there with Eric Roberts. Long story. I won't go into the details, but I was hanging out with Eric Roberts for the day, and he had a meeting, and I was like, "Can I go along?"
Yeah.
And he recognized me, and he said, "I named a town after you in Django Unchained."
Wow.
And I was like, "Dude, that's my favorite movie." And he goes, "Daughtry, Texas." It was spelled different, but he said, "I totally named that after you." And I'm like, "Holy shit! Can I please tell the world that can I quote you on that?" And so yeah, I remember when I watched that movie, I was like, "Does that place even exist?"
Yeah.
I had no idea it was named after me, but he told from the horse's mouth that was from me. So anyway, that's my connection to Tarantino.
That's a great story and a great impersonation of him also, man. You nailed him. I got to tell you.
He's such a nice dude, man. First of all, I was blown away that he even knew who I was. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, along with these virtual performances we were talking about at the beginning of the show, you did a lot of virtual meet and greets as well, which, I thought was really something special for the fans. Even though you weren't in the same room, you still got to spend a little quality time talking with them like, you and I are doing today. Obviously, when you get back to the venues, you're going to be hopefully being with them again. But do you think the dynamic of meet and greets are going to be completely changed just because of, I think we're a lot more conscious and sanitary and
it's interesting in many ways that those meet and greets were way more fulfilling on both sides, because we could talk without the chaotic cattle call atmosphere of a meet and greet, and they're in their house and they're not in front of me, so it's very disarming. And it was like talking to friends, on FaceTime. It was really cool. They got to know me more. I got to know them more, and they would show me around their house. And I feel like a lot of times in meet and greets, fans have so much to say that they say nothing.
Right.
Because once they get there, they feel rushed by the security or by the fact that they know that there's other people waiting in line. But on a phone call, they're it's just them. Yeah. And it was 2 minutes that they barely have 30 seconds in a meet and greet. Right. So in that regard, man, it was way cooler. And so, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how going back into in-person meet and greets, is it going to be on the other side of a table? I don't know how that's going to work out now. And maybe it kind of made us start thinking, maybe it would be cooler if it was more of a chat type situation and less of a, running in to take the picture, It's, to have more of a personal moment with someone you walk away with a better feeling than just like, oh, I ran in there and took a picture, but I don't even feel like I got to say anything.
Right.
And I've kind of learned that too, being in situations with way more famous people than myself, but like at like Grammy parties or even Golden Globes parties or whatever, it was way more important that I walked away with some sort of conversation than it was to, ooh, I got a picture with Michael Keaton, And I did get a picture with Michael Keaton, but at the same time, I had a conversation with Michael Keaton, which was way more memorable. But yeah, I think it kind of made us reevaluate how we do things moving forward. And I think the fans were probably a little skeptical of it first, but they were like, that was actually way cooler because we got to actually talk. And I have been wanting to say these things to you for 10, 11 years.
Wow.
And I thought that was really cool.
Well, I have to say, I have missed being in the same room while I do interviews because that's the way I've done it my entire career. Yeah. But One thing, like I said, looking at it as a positive, you're in your element right now. I'm sitting here at the thing. We're not getting tugged by, like you said, security or management or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, you get a little bit more opportunity to have a really good conversation where, like I said, you don't feel rushed and have to give these 10-second answers, and moving on. So I
agree.
I think it's been good.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Obviously, the music industry is constantly evolving. Some have even said, the idea of releasing a full album is not that important any longer. I'm old school. I don't even want to hear that. But I know your plan is, to still put out that full album, man. Once it finally comes ready to go. And obviously, I kind of feel like I know the answer to this. But what's your feelings on still the relevancy of a full album?
I'm like you, LA. I'm very old school. I love the artwork. I love everything that goes along with a full album.
Yeah.
We've already got the artwork planned out. We've already done the photo shoot. We've got the full body of work for the record. It's a matter of getting instrumentation here and there and mixing and mastering. But I mean, the things, the albums that made me want to do this are so it was never about the one song. It was never about most of the time it was the least favorite song on the record, the song that you heard that made you want to go buy the record.
Right.
It was about every other song on that record that pulled you in and made you even more of a fan of that band. And those deep cuts were the songs that made me want to be a songwriter, and I feel like as a fan of music, I still want that record from my favorite artists or artists I'm just getting into. I want to hear what else they have, and I think despite what everyone is doing with, Spotify and Apple Music, and which is great. I listen to all of it. I'm not I don't feel like I'm as up to date on what's popping right now.
Yeah.
But when I hear something, I want to hear the whole record. I want to hear what else they have. Oh, I like that song. What else do they have? And I get really disappointed when that's all that's there, or they have an EP that came out years ago. I want to hear what they're doing now.
Right.
So I'm a huge advocate for full records. And I feel like I have nothing to base this on, but I feel like it's going to come back.
Yeah. I hope so, man. Thank goodness I have a 16-year-old that kind of keeps me up to speed on what's kind of the happening thing, because she's all about music discovery, and I've actually discovered a lot of people just because of her. You've been performing with your band, I believe, now for over a decade. Is that right?
Yeah, since 2006. 2007. Yeah.
So, with that said, I mean, that's a long time.
With the exception of a few member swap ups.
Right.
Mostly actually additional member and then drummer changeovers.
Gotcha. So what would you say is kind of the longevity or maybe the key ingredient to keeping a band together for so long when you're in such tight quarters, when you were able to tour and you're by each other's side 24/7? So what's kind of the key ingredient that can keep a band together when you're not in the best conditions, I guess?
Well, I think it helps that we're all, and I say this very, respectfully, that we're all adults.
Right.
Like we all have families at home. We're not these single dudes that are getting on the road for the first time and getting into the major party atmosphere. Right. And doing all the things that you would do when you're completely wasted and just getting on each other's nerves. And although we did go through that, but I think the fact that I think there's a maturity that comes along with understanding everybody's got different personalities. And when you accept that and not try to change that, when to walk away, when to give person space, things that may make someone tick and may, all the red buttons, and you try to steer clear of that.
Right.
And I think that goes for everyone. It's easy for band members to go, well, that guy, and there's the one guy that everyone talks shit on. That's a toxic atmosphere, and we've always tried to steer clear of that. And we've had moments in the dressing room where, and I like to initiate stuff like this. It's almost like therapy. Like, we got to clear the air.
Right.
Like, there's some tension here that you can cut with a knife, and you guys need to be men here and adults, and like, get it out in the open.
Right.
Deal with it, and let's move on, because that stuff is so toxic to carry around. And I think that is the key, is to own up to, if you've done something to piss somebody off, or you've said something insulting or whatever, we're grown men, but we get our feelings hurt too. You just gotta own up to that and move on. Because I've seen situations where grudges get carried, and then things get stacked on top of that and stacked on top of that. And it eventually it gets to a point where you can't even be in the same dressing room.
Wow.
And that's not healthy for a band.
Not at all.
Especially when you get on the bus and you got to be on that thing for 15 more hours with them. There's no escape,
Exactly. Well, with so many, TV shows now in the format of a competition setting for singers or bands or whatever, do you feel like these shows are still relevant, like as a breeding ground to find raw talent, kind of the way that, it boosted your career?
I certainly think it is an avenue. Do I think, look, I think everybody has their, everybody gets to where they're going different ways. And I think that all paths are valid. I don't necessarily think if you do what I did, you're going to be the next me or the next Kelly Clarkson or the next Carrie Underwood, because I think there is a level of, you got to do your part too. You have to put in, it is always going to come down to how much work you put in. Those avenues, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, American Idol, like, they're all paths, and they can all lead to success.
Yeah.
But it is ultimately up to you, the individual, and how much homework you do, how much you do to stand out, how much you do to hone your craft, and how much work you actually put in. And for me, I had performed almost 10 years in clubs and bars, spinning wheels, chasing my tail, playing in areas that, weren't exactly known for scouting talent. So no record labels were coming out to check out who the poppin' band was. But when I realized that was, I've gotten to a certain point where this is what I'm doing, I'm spinning wheels, I'm like, what's next for me? Where else can I go? I have a family. I can't afford to get in a van and go travel the East Coast here and hope that someone discovers me. What's my next logical option? Oh, that show, maybe I can get on that and get my name out.
Right. And
maybe I won't make it, but maybe I'll, maybe somebody will see my audition and I'll get more gigs. Yeah. I don't know. It was short-sighted thinking,
right.
But because there was no real, there was nobody on there at the time that was doing like 90s grunge or anything like that. There was Constantine and Bo Bice. They had touched on the rock side of things, and that made me go, oh, maybe it's not just a pop show.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some room for someone like myself. And that worked out great. Is that going to work for the next person that does the same thing? Maybe not. Maybe. But I feel like it's ultimately up to that individual. And I think the trap is a lot of these contestants get on there and think that it's just going to fall in their lap.
Well, you definitely,
even if they win the show,
right.
They think
there's no guarantee.
That means millions of records. That means, number one hits. That mean, and we've seen winners that had neither.
Right.
So I think it's up to the individual, but I do think, to answer your question, that I think it's still a valid option. But I also think there's way more ways to get your music out these days. We had MySpace, that was it.
Well, you kind of sound like you were raised on the same thing that my granddad and my dad told me there as a kid in North Carolina. It's like, nobody's going to get out there and work for you, son. You got to get out there and make it on your own. So I totally
you were
hear
from
you.
North Carolina as well?
Yeah, I grew up outside of Raleigh.
Lasker, North Carolina, right outside of Rocky Mount.
Yeah.
Roanoke Rapids. You know that area?
64 takes you right out there.
Yes.
So
oh,
cool.
my God.
And I'm sure you've probably been to the State Fair and maybe even played some there at the Dorton Arena since you did Idol, right?
We played, I think we did the State Fair in Raleigh. We played at NC State. Wow. Those are my old stomping grounds.
Small world for sure. Wanted to talk about the new single, Heavy as the Crown. World on Fire did great. I was so glad to hear that one. And then you followed it up with this one. In fact, the week you released Heavy as the Crown, I put it on the Rock 30 as my pick of the week I do every week. And I mean, that's just one of those songs, like you said, it has everything, at least for me, a radio guy, that I love to play on the radio. I mean, it's got, great chorus, great music. I mean, it's a perfect radio song. So I wanted to maybe talk about this one a little bit before we play it today.
Elvio Fernandez, my keyboard player, him and his writing partner, his name is Johnny Cummings. They wrote this idea and sent it over while we were in the studio. And I was like, dude, there's something really, really cool here. And we just started running with it. But I feel like it kind of goes back to what I was just saying, man. We all have such a heavy responsibility as individuals, and how we conduct ourselves and the choices we make. And do they align with the goals that we have, and a lot of people don't take that responsibility, and they fall victim to, well, this didn't happen because of this, or this didn't happen because, and they blame all these outside, outward things on on why their life is the way it is. And we have a heavy responsibility as individuals, how we over our families, our homes, our own castles, our own domains. And when you realize that you have this power to have, that you're in full control of your life and the choices you make and the things that you want to see in your life, that you have the power to make that happen for yourself. That's a heavy responsibility.
For sure.
And it's definitely not to be taken lightly.
Well, to close out the show today, Chris, we always like to do a little thing called Artist Pick, where you can pick any of your songs. And I guess maybe a lead into this before you choose it is, I'm just kind of curious, is there one of your songs that will always be in the set list, no matter where you're at or how old you are or how many years from now you play it? Is there going to be one specific song that's kind of one you go like, we got to play this one?
Yeah, September comes to mind.
Yeah.
That song to me just really encompasses my childhood and growing up in Lasker, North Carolina, like I said, out in the middle of nowhere, knowing at a very young age that was never going to be my forever spot. That was definitely a stop, not a stay, and I was gonna have to leave that town to do to do big things. And that song always resonates with me on a very personal level, and that's definitely one it's always a staple.
Well, thanks for picking that one. And it kind of sounds like me. I had to get out of the small town there in North Carolina and head to L.A., and I got a nickname from staying there. So I got back to Austin as quick as I could, man. But anyway, man, it's been great having you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thanks for having me.
And I look forward to, hopefully seeing you on the road. I know you play Austin, and we sure hope to get you back here when you and your band can get back on the road again.
Awesome, man. Thank you again.